The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions, how's it going?
You know what? We're nearing the end of a very big project in our home, and it's going well. And I just want it to be done. So, like, I'm getting double quality of life boosts right now because this big project is almost over, which is always satisfying, right? Even if you don't do a great job. But also, we did like a very good job. So
nice.
The video game angle on this is, we got like a new shelf that I'm going to be putting consoles on, and I spent my entire morning laying them out nicely so that because the door is a tall door and it's glass on top, so that's where the consoles are, so they look nice. Yep. And then all of the sins of my cabling are down on the bottom behind the wooden door, so they look very nice. And like the PS, because I set the shelves up so like the PS5 has like a nice big shelf, and then like the Switch is on a smaller shelf, and all the HDMI and power and everything is like run through custom channels we had to cut in the back of the shelves. Like, it's very nice, and it's going to be very nice when it's done. And as I was like fiddling with it, because I spent literally hours this morning like deciding where stuff would go and running the cables, I was just like, I am spending as much time setting this up as it will probably take me a month to get back in time, like sitting in front of my PS5 on the couch.
But hey, I mean, we're all given so many hours in which to throw at tasks that we like, and apparently this is a way you wish to spend that time, and it is bringing you joy, which is good. Yeah.
Well, and I got like the bridal reveal, where like you know how you look, but you don't know how your partner looks, because the shelves, they're IKEA bookshelves, so they're not the nicest, but we got doors for them, and the doors make them look quite a bit more fancy. So I was working with it. I'm like up close. I can see like the rough edges where we cut the channels out for the wires, and like it's right in my face, and like kept pinching my fingers. God damn it. Right. So like I'm starting to lose my love for this thing. And then I kind of stepped back and I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. Okay, I'm glad I did it this way. This looks pretty good. And then I went out, and then I came back, and Susan had hung the door, and I was like, this looks great. So good.
I am happy with the way things are progressing.
Yeah.
But no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I recently had this is just an idea, so I didn't put any work into it, right?
Yeah,
so like
you're an idea. Man.
I don't want to compare what I'm about to say to you. Like, it's not like my kid just did this amazing thing. It's like, oh, my puppy just stop. Stop. So this is not that, right? These are just both into similar like idea space, right? But no, a friend of mine said something. You know what you should do? Convert your garage into like a guest bedroom / D&D hall, right? And then I thought like, yeah. Because I've got a detached garage, right? So, it's very much so it could just be like its own little guest room, right? And I was like, yeah, I could do that. You know what I could do is if I make it completely, standalone, I could rent it out as an Airbnb. Right now, I might never make any money off of it, but also this is a thing that I would just want. And so any amount of money that I made would be something, right? And I was like, and you know what else I could do? I could like put it out there, like maybe I could do like a little side hustle thing where I could just DM for people, and people could come over, and I could like build this whole thing where it's like, hey, yeah, for a 4-hour adventure, you want to bring friends over, right? And then it's like, and then I could, do a thing where it's like, and for extra money, like I could, there could be like an open bar, and for extra, like this, I was like, oh man, this could be fun. I'm just enjoying the fantasy of the whole thing, right? And I was like, well, now all I have to do is the very, very first thing if I want to go down this road, right? Because again, like it's just first get the space nice, and then that in and of itself has reward, and then you just tack things onto it as it goes, and once you hit a failure state, you stop, right? So I went to Megan and said, hey, honey, I think I want to make the garage into a spare bedroom, and she said, nope, and I was like, cool. So I hit my failure state, and now I've moved on, but it failed way before I anticipated.
Yeah, there were so many places where it's like, well, it could go off the rails here, but no, man, like didn't
even get a permit.
Yeah, the dirt that seed was in got paved over before that seed got a single day of sunshine or a single drop of water.
I was like, oh man, this could be like a fun little thing, like it'll just kind of grow organically and it won't cost me anything except the money I would have spent on the space anyways, and I was like, yeah, this could be kind of fun. And it's like, nah. And I was like, yeah, well, live and learn.
So I knew you weren't going to say this because you're too good at like running a complicated project in slow steps, but part of me was really hoping you were going to be like, so all I had to do was the first obvious step. So I opened an LLC and then I contracted with a marketing company to send out some surveys to see if this would be the kind of thing people would be interested in.
Yeah. No, that's the one of the things that I struggle with one of our mutual friends, is that like they'll come to me and say, hey, I've got a great idea for a thing. And I'm like, sounds good. Lay it on me. And they'll be like, I think we should do thing A. And I'm like, that in and of itself sounds good. Yeah. Because then if we do thing A, it'll link to thing B and then thing C and then thing. I'm like, no, walk it back. Just thing A. That's all we're doing. Right now is all we're doing thing A. It's like, yeah, but if thing A takes off, I'm like, then we'll have other discussions. But right now you're doing thing A, not because it could lead to all of this other stuff, but because you find joy in doing thing A, right? He goes, oh, yeah, joy in doing thing A. I'm like, okay. Because if you don't find joy in doing thing A, chances are these other things will happen. And he was like, oh, but those other things will happen. I'm like, again, you can't start like that, It's like, but you don't understand the industry like I do. I'm like, perhaps. But I am cautioning lower risk, lower reward. You're more so just adding on a bunch of success conditions before you've even reached the first condition. It's like saying, I'm going to go in and play blackjack, and I only want you to pay me if I get a 21. Before the cards have even been dealt. You're like, only pay me if you. It's not like once you've already been dealt, a soft 16 or something like that, and you've been counting the cards, and you're like, oh, I think that this is going to work out for me. It's like, no, just off the cuff. Like, I'm only going to be happy if this becomes a multi-million-dollar enterprise that I can like quit my job over. It's like, what, why, what? No.
Why are you setting the price that high?
Yeah. That seems like a lot to put on this weird idea you just had.
Yeah. Cause I work in tech and venture capital for still a little bit today, but for a long time, for the last several decades, it was like a huge part of the technology industries. You got some people who got very rich in the 80s and 90s and very early 2000s, and then made the classic blunder of thinking having a lot of money means you are smart and good at everything. Mm-hmm. And so they go out and invest in a bunch of companies, and some people are pretty good at picking companies and they make a lot more money, and some people are not great or they're unlucky and they don't make as much money. But what I do find like staggering is when you find out that a VC's hit rate is like 1 in 100, right? 1 in 1,000. Like, it's really bad, but it's because they have so much money, they can pay for that many at bats. Like if you can play the carnival game 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, eventually you probably will learn how to like find the duck with the big, prize on the bottom, right? Like that's a thing you can probably learn to do, but not everybody can afford to play the carnival game 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is in effect the lottery, right? But interestingly, with better odds, because if somebody said, hey, do you want to play the lottery? The odds of you winning it big is 1 in 1,000. You'd be like, I am in, right? As opposed to 1 in 350 million, right? But the problem is that the cost to buy a ticket is $10 million, So, yeah, I mean, it that's unfortunately exactly what it is it's rich person lottery,
Yep.
So, I don't know what to do with that information other than feel a little sad and mention that we played some video games.
We did.
Oh, no, we should chill. We should chill now. This is what we should do. People should give us money so we can...
Yeah, so we can go and start our business.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Okay, so
somehow I feel worse.
We went a little off, and then we brought it back to video games, and we were a little off again. We're kind of doing like a serpentine or like around in and out of the topic.
This is the being chased by an alligator of episodes.
Yes, that you never say you're like, oh, he's just meandering through life. It's like, nah, he's fleeing an alligator, which for anyone who's not from the South, they might be like, what the hell are they talking about? Look it up. If it's not true, it is definitely a prevalent urban legend.
It absolutely, and I believe it is an urban legend because like I remember reading something, but yeah, Serpentine. You got to run Serpentine.
Oh God. If you're into this, support us. The way you can support us is by leaving ratings and reviews, subscribing to the show. But the best way you can do it for no money is to just recommend an episode. One like this, maybe one of your favorite games, maybe one of your most hated games. Find an episode and refer a friend directly to that. I think that helps the best. If you want to start spending money, you can subscribe on Patreon. Everybody who subscribes on Patreon gets the after show. But if you support us at a high enough level, we will actually shout your name out on the show. So first, I need to thank our 4-bit portables, David, Jacob, Joshua, and Keith, our 8-bit classics, Yarno, Jay Brent, John, and Kevin, and our 16-bit hero, Michael.
And for $1,000, Lions and I will go on a 1-mile hike where during the entire duration of the hike, one of us is carrying the other one as a backpack.
One of us is carrying each other, or the person who paid the $1,000?
No, each other.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, if they're always being carried by someone, then like that's what they're getting for their money.
No, what they're getting is both of us making comments on each other's physiques while we angrily try to
grunt our way up
38-year-old bodies.
I feel like I might be getting the short end of this deal.
Well, that's why I didn't say we were going to split it 50-50. Originally, I was going to be like, we're half. I was like, no. We'll go by level of exhaustion, which actually makes it a little bit worse because we're both pretty competitive, right? So now it's just like I'll be like carrying you. You'll be like, hey man, you need a break? No, I'm fine. It's just like, no, come on, George, don't you want to put me down? It's like, all right, fine. No, Lions, you need a break? No, I'm fine. My knees.
Was your knee always swollen like that? Yes.
Yep, all 3 of them.
God. That knee has an extra corner. They're only supposed to have the one.
And by the end of it, we're both just going to look like Master Shake, like just one.
One big glute. One big sad glute. Now we should move on. We did play video games, but first we need to answer our mailbag question. And this one, I think, is another really good one. I actually tried not to overthink this because I was afraid I would like start to second guess myself and then have that like, well, the Russians know and we know that they know that we know. Like, I didn't want to get into that. So the question is, what's a game that each of you wants to do for the show, but you could never in a million years convince the other to play it for 5 minutes, let alone a week? Why do you want to do it, and why does the other person despise it? So the one caveat I do want to put on this is, as you conveniently just mentioned, we're both a little competitive, like particularly with each other, because we have like a good friendship going. I think it's healthy.
Yep.
So there probably isn't a game you would never play, and there probably isn't a game I would never play. So the terms would have to be something that is either a steeper cost, or you just have to broaden out the selection. So I think broadening out the selection is like, what is a game you would begrudgingly play, like you'd be very unhappy to play, and why would you be very unhappy to play it? But the steeper cost, I think, would be, particularly for the genre I'm going to be going for, is you have to finish it.
Ooh.
Right? You can't just sit down for 30 minutes and then be like, oh, this game didn't hook me in the first 30 minutes. It sucks. This game is terrible. I'm not terrible. The game is terrible. Like, you have to play it to completion.
Mm.
So which one of those do you want to go with? Which one of those modifiers?
I think it's easier to go with one that you would finish, right? Because that makes it a little bit easier to kind of like, because again, like you said, is that you would if you said, hey George, I want to play blank for the podcast, I'm pretty much going to say yes regardless. But that being said, that's what the understandable caveat is. I'm going to put my time in order to deconstruct it, and then I am done. If you said, hey George, we have to finish this, that's a blank check, man. Like that could be hours, days, weeks of my life just gone in an instant. And I don't think I'm willing to give any other person with a heartbeat, that level of power over the way I spend my time. Like not even my children. So yeah, that would be that is one where you could potentially name a game where I would say like over my dead body,
Nice. Okay. All right. So this is the price. Is what is a game that each of us would love to do, but we don't think we could get the other person to play it all the way to completion in a recording window?
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what this editing touch point is going to sound like. So I think I'm going to use the like thinking music because like we actually had to talk about this a little bit like out of band of recording. So the elevator music you just heard is because we had to think about this a little bit.
You absolutely have to use the Battletoads pause music, man.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so sorry for not going straight there. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Yes.
It's like, hang on, we need to think about this.
I will 100% use the Battletoads pause music. Beautiful. So the game that first leapt to my mind, because this is a game I have already been wanting us to play for a long time, is Phantasy Star 4. Because it's a really good JRPG. It's a really good RPG from a Japanese company in the early 90s, maybe very late 80s, but I think early 90s. Which is why the one that I would try to force you to play to get you, just say like, no, I won't play that. It's Phantasy Star 2, which is considerably cruftier and does not have the 2 additional sequels worth of like refinement and polish, right? Like it's because the Phantasy Star games, I think, are all set canonically in the same universe, but they're like, it's kind of like The Legend of Zelda, like 1,000 years apart, So you start in the distant future, so everything's already very sci-fi, and then it just can stay sci-fi because it's already so far in the future that 1,000 years is enough to separate the character stories, but not enough to separate what the entire world is like. It's a really interesting not cyberpunky. It's like positive science fiction, so it's more Star Trek-y, a little light Star War-y, but positive. Like technology is good, and the world just is super technological. But it's very dated. It's very turn-based mechanics. It's very grindy. It's rough.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah, it's way back there, and it's probably 30 to 60 hours, I bet. Right, so like it's a full-length RPG with all of the things like the turn-based combat, the sort of janky mechanics, the mediocre translation, like all the stuff that I think would make you go like, no, not if I have to finish it.
No, not in a million years.
Phantasy Star 2 is my entrant into games you wouldn't play if you had to finish it during the 2 weeks for a podcast.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is, I guess that was the thing, is that this, I feel like this question was a little easier for you because you're like, all I need is a turn-based combat game, like George finds those incredibly grating, especially if I've got to finish it, because then every second that I'm pressing buttons to select things in a menu, I'm like, I wish I was dead. I wish I was dead. I wish I was dead. Can I speed this up? Because I've got to get through this, and then I got to watch the same animation over and over and over again. Like every single time it would be them hitting them. And instead of like the little like damage token coming up, it would just be a number followed by an H, because that's how many hours of my life I've lost every single time. And especially if, God forbid, I died and didn't feel like it was justified, and then I just lose. Oh my God. I could feel myself becoming old and desiccated just thinking about all that. So yes, well done. I would not like that. I've got 2. One that is this is like a soft one because it's you've got to finish it, right? And I took great joy in it. I can't remember. We definitely didn't play it for the podcast. I don't think we played it for Nostalgia Goggles. I have played a lot of it, and I really, really enjoy it. But it's in a genre that I'm not sure that you would love, which is Darkest Dungeon.
Have to play to completion.
Have to play to completion, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. That's what would probably kill me with that game.
Because that's the thing, is that like, I think that with that game, I think you would actually, that's the thing, is that your game, I think, would be hateful from the moment that it started. Mine, I think, would you would grow to hate it.
Yeah.
You would start off enjoying it, and then as you lost heroes and realized that doesn't matter, you still have to finish in 2 weeks, and had to rebuild, and then all of a sudden you're in a dungeon, everything's going great, and then things suddenly go sideways, and you realize that just put another 2 days on to the end of this, that you've got to now call off to work in order to get this done. I think that would chip away your sanity, much like in Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, So I did play Darkest Dungeon a little bit, not anywhere. I mean, orders of magnitude less than you played it. But I did play it, which is why I'm thinking the way I would have to even start to approach it would be in a super mechanical, I am like this is a military operation, right? So I would have to, assuming I couldn't just like get a guide, and because it's a strategy game, right? So I'm sure there's like certain abilities that are broken or whatever. Like every strategy game, no matter how well balanced, usually has like some exploits. So assuming I couldn't just cheat my way through it, I would have to invent that cheating, right? I would have to do everything I could, run all these little experiments, and try to actually find a solution, because I know from firsthand experience, if I just played a game like that naturally, I may not ever guess the trick, or say like, oh, if you bring like these two kinds of adventurers and this one, then like they synergize well. And it's not that big of a deal in the early parts of the game, but in the later parts of the game, you really need those synergies, and you didn't pick up on the fact that synergies are kind of a big deal, right? So like that's, oh God, I can... that would be my job. That would have to be my full-time job for 2 weeks. I would have to sit down, learn the game, design a million little experiments, run all those experiments, and then try to use that to predict a winning strategy.
So that would be my answer. I think though, then I have to mod the question one last time, and which would be, what is a game that neither of us wants to do to this show and could never in a million years? So if I wanted to like dive bomb both of us, where I'm like, if I go down, I'm taking you with me.
So this, I'm thinking of this is somebody's favorite game that they have requested, and we're both just like, no,
don't do this to us, bro. The Evil Within. Have you heard anything about that one?
The Evil Within. Googling.
So this was in the PlayStation Pass, which is how I came across it, and I was like, this looks kind of decent, So I and it's a horror game, So I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be, yeah.
Okay, George can see me reacting to screenshots, and how would you describe the face I just made?
Like you rolled 2 wisdom saves and failed them both consecutively. Like you looked horrified, and then dumped on top of that horror was another horrified.
Yeah, that's a good description. So go on to describe the game.
Yeah, so basically it's a horror game, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll give this a shot. We'll see how it goes, right? And I dumped out of it within an hour, right? Because the gameplay, first of all, the localization is terrible. So I believe it was originally in Japanese, so it's really kind of hard to get into the narrative. And then they dump you into like this area where immediately I died like 4 times because I didn't understand the really tricky thing that they were trying to get me to thread. It's full of jump scares and grotesque like horror, and I was like, oh, this is something that we both hate. I would find it appalling because of like the janky mechanics, and you would find it appalling because that tends to grate on me a little bit more, and what grates on you a little bit more is the jump scares and like body horror. Like the entire aesthetic of this game would be, so this would just be throwing us both into a dungeon and like having to Saw movie our way out.
Oh God. Screenshots is just, I'm sure there are games that are like more vulgar and unpleasant, but this is just what's in like the marketing screenshots, and you can still you can still tell that they are leaning not just on jump scares and not just on gore, but on gory jump scares, right? And yes. This would not be good. I would not be in good health at the end of this 2 weeks.
Well, and also too, like the thing that this game in particular did that I find exhausting with horror games is that like after I've died horribly like 5 or 6 times in under 2 minutes, I don't care. I completely. You get used to it. It's just like the bodies in Sweeney Todd, like the bodies hitting the ground with that horrible cracking, right? Like eventually you just become desensitized to it. So like the 3rd or 4th time the chainsaw man chainsawed me through the chest, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Like I don't care,
Well, especially if it's because if the chainsaw man is a constant companion with you for 20 hours of gameplay, but you only get sawed 4 times, then it's probably scary every time. But like you said, in 3 and 4, within like 3 or 4 minutes, like it just keeps happening. And especially if it's at the exact same place, because I'm thinking like point and click style adventure games, or like when we played like Abe's Odyssey, where there is a specific obstacle in a specific room. And no matter how grotesque that is, once this is where I died the last 4 times I died. Okay, the last 5 times I died. Like it just, you are now you're like, it's almost like the Matrix in reverse. Now, instead of seeing the blonde, brunette, redhead, like you are seeing the code because you're just trying to deconstruct the problem. You're not actually in the aesthetics at all.
Right. Yeah. You're no longer in the moment, like experiencing the horror of this character. You're more just like, all right. I mean, I guess that like you're now distinctly playing a video game where like these weird out of place cutscenes keep playing, you know? So yes, that would be like if all of a sudden somebody said, "Hey guys, you know, you know what?
Is that $1,000 tier?
I would not even do it for $1,000.
Not even $1,000 tier.
Not even $1,000. Maybe a $10,000 tier for because that's 2 weeks, man. That's a lot of our lives.
Yeah.
To split $500 each way. I don't know, man.
No, but $5,000.
I'd split $5,000. I'd lose 2 weeks of my life.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Everybody's got a price, and ours isn't even that high.
Well, I mean, we like our listeners. I'm kind of haggling a bit on their behalf. I'm lowballing us. You know?
I appreciate and respect that.
So, what are you playing, and why should I care?
So I finished Wind Waker, which I was excited about because we're recording that coming up, and I finished the main arc on Final Fantasy 14. So it's like a little bit easier to dial back. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put some snackable stuff on my Steam Deck because then I got a snackable game that I could play on a snackable console. Two great tastes that go great together. So there were a handful of games that I had been curious about for a long time that had just been sitting in my library. Like I already owned them, right? And they all ended up, except for one, they all ended up having like a roguelike thing to them, which if we get there, I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts on roguelites. So the first one was this game called Wonder Boy, and it is like an HD remake of a very old, like a Nintendo game, like going way back. And I think it might have been a game that was never localized. So it was like a cult favorite. People played like fan translations or something, but it is a game I heard a lot about. I ended up getting it for free through like one of the deal things I'm subscribed to. And it's gorgeous. Like it's all hand drawn artwork. So it's just like a really beautiful art style. Cause it was originally pixel art, of course. And the music is really good. And I played it for about 15 to 20 minutes. And 10 of those minutes I only tolerated because my 7-year-old came up behind me and went, "What are you playing?" And I was like, I don't want to rage quit this game while she's like sitting right here. So it's just, I probably won't give it any more time. If anybody's like a huge fan of this game, because I didn't play it when I was a kid and I wasn't expecting to get into a game that felt like a beautiful 4K version of a classic NES game. It's just, the jump is weird. The knockback when you take damage, because it's an action platformer, right? So like the jump is weird. When you get knocked back, it's weird. Your weapon has the tiniest little range. You have so little health. When you get hit, you can easily get hit again because of the way the knockback and the invincibility frames work. So it's like kind of easy to die. And I was like, this seems like such a snackable little game. Like it's a grand adventure, but it's broken up into like little platforming levels, and it's gorgeous looking and it sounds gorgeous. And I just don't want to play it because it doesn't feel good. So that I was just like, So I got out of that one pretty quick. And then 3 other games: Revita, Scourgebringer, and Moonlighter. So Revita, I probably won't play because the control scheme is not for me, but I think if I was willing to put the time in to get good at the control scheme, I think I would like it a lot. So Revita is a twin stick pixel art roguelite shooter. So it's a lot like Gungeon, but
I was going to say that sounds like something I would like.
But it's a 2D platformer. So this is where the controls get weird because you have to have both thumbs on the sticks. The face buttons are not really viable options to do anything. So jumping and dashing happens in the triggers and the shoulder buttons, and then shooting happens with the trigger, like the gun trigger where you would expect it to be. So I don't like platforming with a shoulder button. Like I don't like it, but you need to. I totally get it. In fact, when you go in to look at the controls, it literally gives you a warning that is like, the intended experience is that you use the default controls because like we had to think about them and where they are matters, right? You would not be able to do certain things if you had to press face buttons and use the right thumbstick. So it's a very pretty game. It seems very dark and moody. There's a little content warning at the top that's like, hey, this game deals with like mental health and some other pretty heavyweight topics. So like it seems gorgeous, and I might try it a little bit more, but like I'm just kind of on the fence.
Might take another bite of that apple.
Yeah, because it seems really well made and really well thought out. I learned about it because I used to follow the artist on Twitter, and so he tweeted about like his game dev work. Really really talented person. I think he actually did almost all the stuff on the game himself. But anyway, I don't know if I could deal with those controls. It's just who uses their left index finger to jump? It's madness making. So then I switched to Scourgebringer because Scourgebringer is also a 2D platformer, roguelite, pixel art, challenge based, set in like an aesthetically creepy world, right? So very similar, but because it is swords, right? You don't have to aim the gun using the second stick, which means they can put all the actions back onto the face buttons. So now dash is on the shoulder, which is fine, but jump is on a face button where it goddamn belongs. So that like, it's also hard, right? It's like both of these are pretty challenge-based games. So we'll see how I feel about Scourgebringer, but the controls are definitely more relatable to me. And then Moonlighter is what if Zelda, but a roguelite? So it's like 2D, but top down, like Link to the Past style. And the whole conceit of the game is you are a merchant, and the merchant class in this universe is also the adventurer class because they go into dungeons to get stuff to bring out because they have pendants that like let them magically teleport to safety. So they're not super talented adventurers. It's just that they are the only ones in the world who can go get things in the dungeons and then sell them at their stores. So the whole merchant class is like also the adventurer class. So during the day, you run your shop and it's like a little lightweight sim game. And then at night, you go into the dungeon and you try to collect collect like treasures monsters drop or like even stuff from other adventurers. So it's a little less super challenge action side, but it's a little more like chill simulation side. But all three of these games they're all roguelites, so they're all, they're more snackable. You can pick it up and like it's a new experience every time, right? You're not just playing the same like kind of platform over and over again. So that's I haven't put a ton of time into any of them yet, so I could come back in a couple weeks and just be like, they're all terrible or they're all the best. Like I don't know yet, but
or I never touched any of them again.
Yeah, I never thought about them for a single additional second. But all three of them have been like hanging on in my backlog. Like, hey, eventually you're going to try us, right? So Steam Deck makes that super easy, which is cool.
I will say that Moonlighter in particular is free for the PlayStation membership. So if you want to try that, all you have to do is just go on to your PlayStation app on your phone and press download to console, like I just did.
Like
so while we were
recording.
Yeah. But yeah, no. As you were kind of talking, I was looking up artwork for the game, and Revita is $16 currently for PlayStation. So I added it to my wish list because there are some times where I'm like, I don't know, it's like I feel like we've reached the point where I'm like the Roman emperor, eating grapes on like my chaise lounge, right? Where it's like before, it's like I'm looking at this vast games catalog that I have of games that I've bought and can now play on my PlayStation, and I'm like, I do not feel like playing any of these games. What is out there that could entice me to play? Whereas before when, we were kids, it was like, I have 5 video games for my NES and my parents aren't taking me to Blockbuster for a week. Looks like we're playing one of those games, Yep.
So I'm not proud of this, but I had Moonlighter on the Epic Game Store already because I got it for free ages ago when they were doing a promotion. And I just couldn't get it to launch properly on the Steam Deck. So I just bought it on Steam. Nice. Luckily, It was on super sale. So probably the same reason it's free right now on PlayStation. But normally it's like $16, but it was on sale for like $1.99. And so I was just like, you know what? My time not fiddling with this forever to actually like be able to sit and play it is worth the $1.99 to me. Like I'm very lucky that I can make that decision, and I did, and I'm glad that I did.
Oh yeah, no, I have definitely also sometimes, because I mean, and I think that this is part of my core philosophy that people have said, like, this is not everybody thinks this way, but like, is the, money is used to exchange for goods and services. So very often I'll be like, I don't know, man, how much is it going to cost for me to make this problem go away? And it's like $5. It's like, done. I don't care. So yeah. So I 100% back your opinion, although I will tell a quick side story that I think I shared with you. But our mutual friend, he is big into rapid prototyping, and he has several 3D printers, right? And I was visiting at one point, and he also has children, and so he is in that unique place of being the guy that can make toys. So he downloaded some like 3D printed models, and was making all these toys for his kids, and they loved them, right? Which is great. And then literally at one point he said, his wife said, hey, can you lift up the couch? One of the toys got knocked under the couch. And he said, I'll just print another one. And and I was like, no, you have gone mad with power, sir. Like just lift up the couch. This will take 2 seconds. He's like, George, all I have to do is just hit print. I'm like, I get that. But like emotionally, I can't deal with spending more resources than it takes me to turn this like 5 kilocalories of energy into like mechanical energy to lift this couch up, right? Like that. And so anyway, so yeah, it's not quite that bad. When you start to get to that point, I'll let you know. What?
Did he?
You know what? This is because you know this guy, right? The thing is, I lifted the couch and kicked the toy out to make a point, and then he went into the garage and printed out another one to make his point. So
yay,
he kind of won because eventually all of my efforts were meaningless because the supplies were wasted. This is the same guy who, when some people were confronting him because he ordered a steak, and this was in high school, and some people were really ripping on him for ordering a steak, right? And like I totally get, people should be eating sustainably and all that sort of stuff. Not saying that that's not a bad thing. What I am saying is that the people who were giving this person grief about just ordering food was, in my opinion, excessive, right? So they were like, I can't believe that you do this. Do you know how the cow felt? And blah, blah, blah. And then he calls the waitress back over, and he gets 2 more steaks. and when asked about it, he said, I got my steak, the steak they would have eaten, and then one to make it worse. So that similar mentality.
And that's a very high school response to like, no, I'll just burn it all down. Like
yeah, right.
I don't have a deep enough internal like framework of the world to feel bad about what I'm about to do.
But I do. So again, like, sustainable, like veganism, all that sort of stuff, putting all that on hold. I do like the mental model of like, I need to, because you know what it is? It appeals to me the same way as Ender in I need to not win this fight, I need to win all of the fights. It's like, if I just order another steak, then we're at break even. That might not prove the point. I need to make sure that they know that the decisions that they made the situation worse forever. It's like,
I need to not just eat this steak, but all of the steaks, all of the steaks to come. I got to eat them all.
But yeah, no, I think I'll give Moonlighter a try. That, I mean, again, it cost me nothing but time to try it, so it does look interesting.
That is the one I'm the most personally excited for, because I wanted something that was a little on the easier side, right? Because challenge games are challenging. Like, I love them under the right circumstances, but that's not always what I want to wind down with, right? Ditto right. You playing on easy mode. So yep. Revita, though, is the one I'm actually, if at some point you get a chance to play it, maybe if you see it for free, or like the next time we're together, feel free to sit down with it for an hour. But that's the one I'm most curious about your opinion on, because the twin stick in like 2 dimensions, like without the fake Z-axis of like a top-down perspective, it did not immediately jive with my brain, and I was like, oh, this is Gungeon, except I also have to jump, and that additional layer makes the controls of Gungeon, in my opinion, like way more complicated, right? Because you can manage your left and right with perfect freedom, but you can only manage your Z-axis on a loan, right? You can take it out, but you gotta pay it back, and depending on how poorly conceived that loan was, paying it back might actually be worse than if you didn't take it out in the first place, So it's like, I love the idea, and like I said, the game itself seems like aesthetically incredibly well thought out, but I don't know, like I played 3 roguelites all for about an hour or half an hour to an hour each, like in a very compact amount of time. I was like, these all consider themselves to be in the same genre, but they all feel super different. Even the 2 that are both platformers, like, play so differently that you can imagine somebody, if they came to one of those first, it bouncing them off the genre because their controls are too difficult, or them getting married to the genre because they think this is what every game in that genre looks like, right? So it's just like, even games that, if you read the nutrition facts on the back of the box, they seem like they're basically the same damn game. It's like, nah, dude, super different feel.
Yeah. Which, we can discuss that here in the not too distant future. I will probably play Revita if I can remember to. The thing is that I literally just earlier today spent $15 on a new game. So I normally, if it's games from the game library, I'll download a million of them. I don't care, right? They're free, effectively. But if I spend money on a game, I'm normally like, I'm going to spend some time on this, because otherwise I'll fall down the rabbit hole of like, I've spent, $80 on video games and have only played one of them, because then by the time I'm done playing the one $15 game that I actually started playing, there will be a new game that piques my interest, and then I'll move on to that one, and then I'll have spent money that I didn't. So I normally like,
you don't want to be, you don't want to have a venture capitalist level of success your game purchases.
Yeah, exactly. So what I am playing is actually, interestingly, not much recently, just because my wife was out of town for a couple of weeks, and so she just got back into town. So I've been spending a lot of my time, spending time with her and like watching some of our shows and kind of getting caught up on that. And so because of the way our recording structure has been, most of the games that I was playing a ton of video games for the last recording, and for this one I've been playing none, so it was all front loaded, right? So everything I had to talk about. So I will mention that we did finish and get up to speed on My Hero Academia, and that TV show, in my opinion, gets like, starts off decent, gets really good, and then has this serious dip. But this last season, pretty good.
What number is that last season? Because I dipped out in 3.
It's season 6.
Ooh, no, nope.
Yeah. No,
thanks. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yep. Cool. Good on you. I honestly, though, think that, as weird as it sounds, you could probably just jump back on at season 6, because they do a good job kind of explaining everything else that happened.
Yikes. That's how bad those seasons were, is that they knew people dropped out. So they have to like recap for the people who are coming back.
Yeah, like you might kind of need a little bit more. For example, because I'm pretty sure that Megan and I missed some episodes because we were like, we've forgotten where we were. So here, and we were like, I kind of remember enough of what was going on. So there would be a couple of characters so you're like, I don't know who that is, but that's fine. Like, you don't know who that is. There's like one big character, like, that's kind of like a Titan, and they have like a whole arc about like how he joins the group. But if you just can go with the conceit of he's in the group now, you can cut out like 20 episodes. So
the quest to recruit the Titan is not necessary to enjoy the Titan story.
Correct. So anyway, so we watched that. That got pretty good, and that actually got me close enough, because they do have a My Hero Academia video game, and I was like, maybe. And but then it was like $20, and it's a versus fighter video game, and I was like, no, this is gonna. If I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna play Dragon Ball Fighters and actually play that one through. So I have been dabbling a little bit more with Horizon Forbidden West, and so the interesting thing about that is I probably had only I've only had half-hour chunks to play video games, and if that, so it's basically when Megan's putting the kids to bed on the nights where she puts them to bed. That's how much time I've had to play video games. And so the interesting thing is with Forbidden West is it employs a save mechanic where you have to be by a campfire to save, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's not uncommon, right? And the thing is that I don't trust the game enough on its like in situ saving to like, because it's very specific. It's like you got to save. You can quick save, you can manual save, but you got to save by these fireplaces. So or campfires. So I say all that to say I'm kind of like stuck in this weird loop where the quest that I need to go on takes about an hour. So I get like started down that road and then look at the time and I'm like, I don't have time to finish this. So then I just run around and just murder machine dinosaurs until, Megan comes downstairs and then we spend time together. So I think that that's something that just to discuss that briefly, that I don't like that, obviously, right?
Yeah. And
this
is, you're playing this on the PS5?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, do you also not trust suspend on the PS5?
No, because my son plays video games on the PS5 sometimes.
Right. So you can't. You can't just say, right, Teddy, this week you can't touch the PS5.
Because it's summer break. If it wasn't summer break, I could, because he doesn't play video games during the week when he's in school. Right. But he plays video games pretty much every day now, because it's summer. That's the point of summer, right? So yeah. So no, I thought about that, but I was like, no, he's going to come down. And the thing is, it's not like I could even put a note on the TV that says just this once, don't play video games, right? Because he would just take that off and be like, I choose not to understand this. And then
you come down, he's eating the note while playing a game. I didn't see anything. Nom, 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 nom.
And so that's the thing, is that, like, so I get that they were probably, the people of Forbidden West were like, oh, well, if this is ever a situation, they can just suspend it because they're playing it on, whatever, right? But the suspension, one, I mean, yeah, you could lose power. There's any number of different things. And two, it also assumes that they're like, yeah, you're playing our game now, man. That's it. That's all you got. So I don't really like any of that. And two, and I'm interested in, maybe you might be able to tell me why this is not a thing. I get the idea of being like, hey, if you want to save, right, and like truly save your progress, we want you to do that in these spaces for these mechanical reasons. There's a million different mechanical reasons to do that, right? I don't understand, though, why games like that can't employ a, like, start suspend, Like basically you're saving on your, because Darkest Dungeon does this, right? And a lot of other roguelike games where they're like, we don't want you to save scum. That's what we don't want you to do, right? So it's just like, okay, so if I need to go, I can just press start and say, like, save and quit, and then I can then have that save file forever. But the minute that I boot it up, it erases that save file. I can't go back to that one,
Which the Game Boy Dragon Warrior that we played, mm-hmm, that is actually how a lot of Game Boy games handled saves, because the presumption was, okay, we'll let you save over here, but, like, once you load, like, that save is now burned. You suspended the console because the console's powered by batteries, not that you saved in a way that is, like, mechanically approved.
Right. So I like that as an option, because then I could get halfway through this dungeon and be like, okay, I get the fact that if I die, you don't want me to be able to be kicked back to halfway through the dungeon. You want to kick me all the way out. You want this to play a certain way. Totally get that as a developer. That's your call. I don't always like it because it increases the cycle time, and we all know how I feel about that. But that's fine. I understand that there's a purpose behind it, right? But to just say, like, nah, man, you can't attempt this quest at all unless you carve out an hour of your life. And it's like, well, I might not have that time for a while. And this is the type of thing that would 100%, and probably not, because I'm enjoying the game otherwise, but, like, that would cause me to just put the game down. Because if all of a sudden I'm like, I can't make any more progress in this game until I can set an hour aside. I'm not going to be able to set an hour aside this week, so I think I'll try this other game. And now I'm just playing the other game,
So there is no technological reason that I know of that what you are asking for cannot be done. And what I mean by that is, based on my understanding of how game engines work and how they're keeping certain stuff in memory and then they're writing other stuff out, and they're like, there's nothing that is necessary to say we can't do this. There may be game engines that are bad at that because they keep certain things in memory and there's no, like, built-in system to writing those to disk and then, like, reinflating, like, loading the game in that context. But that is, as one of my coworkers used to say, it's all software. We can make it do anything. Right? Like, once you don't have the physical limitations of the hardware, saying, well, how would we write this information to disk? It's like, you just said it. You would write the information to disk. And it's like, well, but the engine doesn't really support that. And it's like, then use a different engine. Modify this engine. Bake a plugin in on top that will write this to disk, even though the engine's not supposed to do that. Like, it's all software. You can make it do anything. So then the question becomes, but they're not doing this, so why are they not doing it? Technology actually may be a legitimate excuse here, like where someone would say, well, we're using, I don't know, the Unity game engine, and the Unity game engine is not good at defining arbitrary places to save, like, under these circumstances, and we don't have the time or money or wherewithal to do that because we don't think our players care that much. So like we are willing to lose George as a player if he can't save in the middle of this hour-long dungeon, right? And anybody with the technical limitations could also cheat and do it on the game design side and just say there's never more than 15 minutes between save points, right? You will never go more than 15 minutes. And so saving in situ just doesn't feel like that high of a price, so we're not going to build it in. My guess is that it is a subconscious or maybe even conscious design choice that is, I would not be surprised if it's going unremarked, where someone says, okay, you can only save in these areas, but there's a dungeon or a narrative beat or a whatever, and we want you to get into that and then get out of that, and then you can save. But we do not want you to load halfway through the haunted mansion and halfway to discovering who the murderer is. You have to get into the mansion, find the murderer, get them, caught and punished, and then you can go back out of the haunted mansion and save. But once you're in the haunted mansion, there's no saving inside the haunted mansion. Once you aggro the dinosaur, there's no dealing with that, right? And like Monster Hunter, I think that series, like one of the things that series is famous for is super long boss fights. So a single encounter with a single monster can last 30, 45, 60 minutes, maybe longer, right? And so it's like not even, I went and did all of these things over this whole hour and I cleared this whole dungeon and I defeated all of these robot dinosaurs, one dinosaur, right? So like that's, I think it's very limiting to players in circumstances like yours, which I think sucks because I'm in similar circumstances to yours. But I think there are certain places I would be willing to cross the line and certain places I wouldn't. Like if it's just an adventure and the player, once they boot the game back up, it will be very easy to reorient themselves and pick back up, then yes, you should probably be able to save basically whenever you want. If it's a complicated puzzle of some kind, then I would actually probably be a little bit less likely. And if it's combat, like if you could load the game up and then immediately die, then that would give me the most pause. Like if an enemy is charging you, you should not be able to press start and save and just be like, all right, I'm done. Like, because imagine if you just did that with suspending the console, then you go and eat dinner and then you come back and you unsuspend the console and you just get your lunch eaten, right? Like that wouldn't feel great. So I would be like, the higher the stakes and the more like immediate action is required from the player, the less likely it would be to let them do a suspend style save where we actually like wrote something out to disk. But generally, like I'm walking down a hallway between two rooms and I'm not keeping a lot of information in my working memory. Like, yeah, just let me save. Even if you burn it right after I load so that I can't save scum. Like I totally get that.
Yeah. I think that honestly, from my seat and my guess is I could hear myself from like the corporate side being on the other side of this argument, right? Because I could imagine a developer coming up to me and saying like, hey, we're going to need to ship late, or, maybe not even that, or like, hey, I need you to pay me 80 hours of overtime to build in this functionality, right? And I'd say, okay, well, what is the functionality? It's like, well, they need to be able to, save in situ. And it's like, well, do we have campfires for that? Why do we need this additional save mechanic? It's like, well, what if they don't have enough time to really finish the quest and get back to the thing? It helped for them to dump out like that. And I'd say, like, John, that's what suspend state's for. That all of the consoles can do suspend state. Like, yeah, but like, what if they're playing another game? I'm like, I don't care, John. Get back to then I would just shut it down because I was like, you're reaching this like bizarre edge case, and I'd say, like, John, you're making stuff up. Get back to work, right? So I could absolutely see that as just being we've got with any project you've got 1,000 things to do and enough time to do 800. The fact that if I had a designer that was hammering this point, I would probably become frustrated with them instead of them using their resources to do something else that is absolutely critical, because if you're asking me, the purveyor of this video game, what if they can't use suspend state because they're busy playing other people's products? I'd say, I don't care. And then if you say like, well, but it could just be that they have kids, and that they'd be like, what are we even talking about now? So I could see that, but that being said, I still want it. So
yeah. And I'm disappointed to let you know that that actually feels like probably the most likely because games, especially games like you're playing a AAA huge budget, blockbuster game, and they're not known for their like super casual working conditions. And
Nope.
they're also not like if because I work in software products, like certain features are not deal breakers for your users, and having them does not get you rewarded. Right. So like if you were at a restaurant and you just expect the place to be set with a fork on the napkin and then a spoon and a knife on the other side, and you order something that doesn't need a spoon and they don't bring you a spoon, are you going to get up and leave the restaurant and not pay for the food you just ordered? Like, probably not. You're probably going to sit there and eat it. You might get up and leave if you needed a spoon and they refused to bring you one, right? But if you are missing something you expected, and even if it's something you prefer, not like, oh, well, it has to be there, but just like, I would rather it was here. And I like it to be there when it can be. It's like, but are you going to leave without it? No. Okay. Well, some people said yes, but it's a low enough number of people that said yes that the restaurant doesn't go under, right? So our game is not, people are not turning up their nose because this one convenience feature is missing. But if we didn't have a more spectacular robot dinosaur or something that is like the unique sauce of your thing, right? For Horizon Forbidden West in this case, if we don't have one more crafting mechanic or one more, custom bow you can get or something, like, then that's where we're afraid people will fall off, because those are the things we believe they're coming for. If we only have 3 ways to save and not 4, then like nobody's going to pass on the game, right? So I am sad to say, capitalism is probably the answer.
Well, so interestingly, what you are describing is the Kano model. Have you ever heard of that? I learned about it recently.
I don't.
Like Kano from Mortal Kombat, Kano. No, it was my understanding is that he was a lean practitioner in Japan who kind of came up with this idea. But basically, it's like a matrix, right? An XY coordinate, and it's on the x-axis, it's needs not met versus needs fully met, and then it's user satisfaction versus user dissatisfaction, right?
Yes, I know that. I did not know it was called the Kano model.
The Kano model.
Yeah.
So as you were describing, I'm like, wait, I just learned about this in the class recently. But yeah, so basically,
I can apply things I've learned.
Yeah. So there are, like basic features, which are like the minimum expected by the customer, right? And then so that's like the game functions, right? And then performance features, which are what you're describing, where it's like customers respond well to high investments in these features. And then there are the delighters, the features that customers will perceive as going above and beyond their expectations. These things will differentiate you from the competition, but if they're not there, no one will make note of it, right? So having a like dump out save function, like a save in situ function, that would be a delighter, right? But in a game where I literally was saying in the last podcast, I'm like, some of these visuals are a little weird, right? Like those are the performance features so if they weren't getting the performance features done, I'm pretty sure they would be dumping all the resources into that, not into the delighters. So, again, I get it, but as we had said in yet another podcast, right? Just because I understand it doesn't mean that I have to like it. Just because I get that they'll make more money making, and potentially more people happy making Mario movies instead of Mario video games, doesn't mean that I'm not still upset, because I want my Mario video game. So I want that feature. Now that's it.
I wonder, well, you're making me think about a couple different things, but one of the things I wonder about is how related to a game's engine saving is, right? So a game engine can do a lot, right? It can be the physics of the world, but it can be all the way up to like every single system is in a prepackaged thing, right? So there's a piece of software that's been running for like 30 years called RPG Maker, and it's exactly what it sounds like, right? So in the old days, you could use it to make a game that looked and felt like Final Fantasy 1 or Dragon Warrior, right? And then later you could make it feel like Super Nintendo RPGs, and then later you can make it feel like PlayStation RPGs, right? So it's a tool to build games like that. But especially in the early days when it was a less sophisticated product, some of the systems were not tweakable. Like you just used them as is, right? And there have been serious video games made using this system. So it's like, it's a fun toy hobby thing, but also people have like made and sold products that use RPG Maker as the underlying software. So it is a serious thing. It's just not like, it's not an industry standard, like professional level tool. And then you have stuff like the Unreal Engine, which like Final Fantasies are made out of, and like Call of Duties, or, you know, that like caliber of game are made on like the Unreal Engine. So
Call of Duty.
Yes. Call of Dutopodes. So the amount that those have out of the box is actually probably less total stuff, but the polish is way higher, right? Because if you were going to make a game where you want ultra realistic graphics and ultra realistic physics, you can pay programmers to build your save engine and your menu engine. Like, you don't need the tool set to do that, because you have people on staff who can do this other way harder thing. And so making them do this simpler thing by their standard is like more achievable, right? And so this is all a long-winded way of saying I would not be surprised if higher quality, or I should say more bigger budget, like AAA games are less likely to have those features when they have the flexibility, but they're not allowed to spend the money on those delight features. Whereas an indie game that is using like an indie engine, and they're doing everything themselves, they're doing all the art, they're doing all the programming, they're doing all the music, like they don't have the resources. Like they're not building those delight features because they can't. The other people, the AAA people, are not building those delight features because they're not allowed to.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what it ultimately comes down to, right? Is that, you know, it's all based off of money. And we kind of did a bit of a deep dive on this in a previous podcast, but then and I know and this is a great example of like how we said, like we're both competitive, but a healthy amount. Like we disagree sometimes, but a healthy amount, you know. And so I think that when we talk about like how pro capitalism is, I think like on a scale of 1 to 10, like I'm like a 5 or a 6, and you're like a 2 or a 3, you know. So like I'm not, you know, super like capitalism's the best, but at the same point in time, I'm like, I think it serves some functionality, right? Like there's some upsides and definitely some extreme downsides. And so like, and I think that the problem is, you know, to me, like capitalism is a lot like ketchup, right? Is it goes really well on some things and terribly on others. And where I run into problems is when people say like ketchup goes great on everything, and it's like it emphatically doesn't. This is not the right time to use ketchup on ice cream. It's like you might want to use fudge. It's like fudge is the work of the devil, sir. And yeah, it's like no, okay, these are different tools in our tool belt, you see. Anyways, I say all that to say that yeah, you know, like there's definitely capitalism in this case, right? Where it's you know, you can make the argument that they are making the right decision, because whatever that they're doing, as long as it's yielding them the most money, then it's making people the most happy, because they're exchanging their money for happiness. But then your counterpoint would, of course, be that people spend their money like morons sometimes.
All the time.
So, you know, is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. But I don't like it.
The curtain falls. The music plays. The credits roll. Then it all fades to black. And you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone. There's no player two there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creeping with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less on how you saved the day than on all the experience gained. At the end of it all, gamers play what we play, not for game over, but rather for what we take away. The world is along for the ride.